Hi guys, welcome back to the Old Black's Head podcast. Today we're going to go over the old Krakenite in Australia. Now, for us growing up, Krakenite to me was like you had Christmas and then the Krakenite. Krakenite was really 2 weeks of just great fun. Great fun. Now, for people who don't know what Krakenite was, for us growing up back in the day, you had families would all get together, would pick somewhere, someone's backyard who had a big backyard or local reserve or something like that. And everyone over the weeks would collect all their timber, all their scrap timber laying around, and we'd make massive big bonfire. Then we'd stuff like an old pair of jeans, an old shirt, get like stockings and stuff them full of paper, make a head shape, and basically you're making a scarecrow. And then you'd stick him on the top of the pile. And he was Guy Fawkes, which I got up here on the screen. Now, Guy Fawkes was the guy, well, it was a group of people, back in 1605 that tried to blow up the Parliament and assassinate James of England, James I, and blow up the Tower of London. What do we got here? Guy Fawkes. Where we got it? I can't even find the part I want. Anyway, Guy Fawkes' job was to guard the explosives that they'd planted under the gunpowder that they'd planted underneath the Parliament. Someone wrote a letter to the authorities, dobbing them in, saying there's a plot, you better check underneath. So the authorities go and check underneath. They find him there guarding it. So he's the fall guy. He gets arrested. He's supposed to be hung and drawn and quartered. I don't understand that, how you get hung and then drawn and quartered. To me, when you hang, you're dead, so why would you draw and quarter him? But obviously not. Anyway, then they were saying that when they hung him, he died. So they didn't bother pulling his limbs off with horses because he was already dead and he wouldn't feel it. And they reckon that he jumped to make sure he broke his neck instead of just falling. I mean, none of the stories make sense that they tell you. But anyway, that's how the story goes, and that's who we were making this scarecrow of to burn every year. It's pretty satanic if you're asking me, but, witchcrafty, you're burning an effigy of someone every year. Pretty creepy when you think about it. But back when you're a kid, you don't think about these things. You just think it's part of life and you're going along with these stuff. Anyway, for us, it was great. If you had money, you could just go to the shop. You didn't need no license. You didn't need no ID. You didn't need anything. You just rock up to the local newsagents and pick what fireworks you want. If you had the money to buy it, you buy it. Didn't matter what age you were. I was buying it when I was in primary school, a little kid. Yeah, what we'd do, we'd all stockpile our own little supplies. And then we'd have wars. We'd learn how to make different type of bungers. Bungers was like a, primitive hand grenade. So palm trees were the favourite because they were cheap. They were, they were only about the size of your finger. And you'd pull the wick out, pull the top of it out, and then you'd get newspaper and scrunch it up, or cardboard, and you'd pack it down in there really, really hard. Then you'd get electrical tape and tape it up really good. Stick a hole in it, stick the wick back in, There you go. You got a bunger, an explosive. Only because they used to have, I think they were called Tom Thumbs. I can't remember them because they weren't around. They'd already banned the ones that you could actually buy, the bungers that you could actually buy. So they were outlawed. So we had to make our own. Yeah, and we'd have massive fights till everyone ran out of ammo. I remember one year at Critto's place, Critto sort of lived on a bit of a hill, and he had to walk up over the driveway to get to his front house, and it had like a landing over the garage for the front door. So we had guys down in the front yard throwing bungers over at us up at the top. So we're on top of the fort, you know, I was say. Then Critto was crazy. They'd throw them, he'd look down and see how much of the wick was left, and he'd pick them back up and throw them back at him. Yeah. Then we had ball shooters, which were great. Because you had them in like, I think 10 was the smallest. 10, 20s and 50s, I think it went. And yeah, they just basically shot one ball at a time, with a few seconds gap in between. They're basically just like a gun. You'd hold it and shoot a fireball out at you. One year we were having a cracker fight in the back of my place, and my brother was hiding under the willow tree, using that as like protection as the willows come down. Critto got him a beauty with the ball shooter, and the ball landed actually in his head, caught his whole hair on fire. He's running around the yard trying to get his hair out. We thought it was hilarious at the time. Another year we had a massive, like heaps of people from the neighbourhood all met at the local footy oval. And this year we were, there's guys, older guys there that drove. And us young guys, I might have been year 7 or something like that, year 8, I can't remember. But there was heaps. That went on for ages and ages and ages. It was pretty crazy. Mainly ball shooters. Ball shooters at each other along the park and just jumping out of the way. Great fun. The actual cracker night itself, when we were kids, little kids, they were fun. It was just, normal bonfire. Watch the effigy burn. Watch poor old Guy Fawkes get torched up. Then we'd have fireworks display, just at home. All the families would get together and put all their crackers together, so it went for a few hours, And it was good. It's good for the neighbourhood, good community stuff. Well, I enjoyed it anyway. Then when I got to year 8, things sort of went a bit, what would you say? I'll tell you the story. Anyway, I was always trying to improve on the bunger idea. And I was always making bungers out of all different crackers. Big rockets, all sorts of stuff. And then one year I thought, bugger this, why don't I make one out of a tin can? So I'd get tin cans, little tins, paint tins, all that sort of stuff. Pack them full of gunpowder and tape them up, put a wick in and all that. And the lid would always blow off too easy. It would blow up, but it wouldn't be very loud. It wasn't very, wasn't very explosive. Didn't have much power to it. And I kept mucking around, designing. By the time I got to year 8, you got to remember back then there's no internet. So you couldn't just go on the internet and look up how to make bombs or anything. You actually had to use your brain and try and work out how to do stuff. Which sometimes is pretty dangerous. Because you don't know the dangers because you haven't read about stuff. Anyway, I found some old pipe in the garage. And I worked out that if I bent one end over, packed it full of gunpowder, and then bent the other end over in the vise. And then I used to get a nail. This is how crazy I was. Instead of doing this first, I would get a nail and hit it with a hammer and put a hole into the side of the wall of the pipe bomb that I just made. Put a wick in, and off you go. You got a bomb. I'm not recommending anyone do this because it's very dangerous, and you'll find out what happens when you play with this sort of stuff. Now, I'd made a whole heap of these things. I don't know, maybe 30, 40 of them. All different sizes, little ones to bigger ones. Some were in aluminium, made out of like aluminium pipe for like tent posts or something like that. I can't remember what it was actually of, but it wasn't very thick walled. Some were copper. Anyway. And there had been reports on the local radio and news station stuff about people making bombs. And my dad knew I was always doing up to no good. So he did actually come and warn me and say, I don't want you making any of these bombs. I'm hearing people make it. And yeah, gave me the old dad lecture. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, no worries. But he didn't know I already got 30, 40 of them under my bed. Anyway, then I had an Italian friend that lived up around the corner. Because him and his younger brother lived there. And I don't know if you know much about Italians, but they very family orientated. Which back then I used to go, you poor buggers, because they weren't allowed to do anything. I had free reign. I could do whatever hell I wanted. Right, my parents weren't religious. We had no family in Australia other than us. Me, my brother, my sister, I, Mum and Dad. That was all we had. So we had no one else to babysit us or look after us or look out for us or any of that sort of stuff. Me being the youngest, Mum and Dad, Mum had already started working part-time by the time I was in primary school. So, yeah, I basically could do what I want. The only rule I had was you have to be home before the street lights come on. That was it. No telephone tracking me. Do what the hell I want. Go wherever I want. As long as I got home before the street lights were on, Mum didn't care. Anyway, back to the crackers. I was telling Anthony, he lived around the corner from me, about crackers and all that sort of stuff, what we do. And he's like, man, he was getting so excited, pumped up, because he goes, man, will I do any of this stuff, all this sort of stuff. And he goes, can you show me one? Can you show me what they like? And I'm like, oh, I didn't really want to, because I didn't want to waste one. In the middle of the day, I normally let them off at night where no one can find you doing stuff, So I've got the smallest one I had, which would have only been 2 inches long. Well, thickness of my thumb. And I went around and I made sure I had this other rocket thing and it had a really long wick on it. So I put the longest wick I could in it. And I put it down on the road and we put a box on top of it. And I lit it and ran. And we were waiting and waiting and waiting. Didn't go off. Now when I lit that wick at first, it just burnt like a normal wick. Same speed. Now if you were going to let that off and try and blow something up in the middle of the night, we used to use cigarettes as a timer. Now, that was, no. For us, I started smoking when I was in, like, I don't know, 5th class, I suppose. Like, full-on smoking in 5th class. It was ridiculous. But anyway, you could just rock up to the shop, buy smokes. That was it. As long as you had the money, you buy smokes. So we all had cigarettes. So that's what we did. Just put the cigarette down on it. And then you could just, you got 4 minutes before it goes off. So you're miles away before it goes off. Anyway, this day I didn't need to do that. I've gone back, kicked the box, seen that the wick was out. And it had maybe 1.5 inches of wick left. And I'd already seen how fast the wick burnt. So I'm like, yeah, no worries. All right, I'll light it. Stay back, everyone. Well, I lit it, and as soon as I lit that wick, I knew I was in deep trouble. It just went and raced. I only had time to turn and lift my foot to run, and it blew up. And I mean, it went off. And, you watch the war movies where they get, an explosion goes off near them and everything's, and they can't hear and they're like dazed, like concussed, or that's exactly what I went through. It's exactly like you see in the movies. That's what your vision and everything's like. You're like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? So I went and sat down on the gutter while my ears are just ringing, thumping. And while I'm sitting there, I look down in the gutter and there's blood in the gutter. Then I looked at my big toe, and my big toenail was lifted off halfway on the side. And I've gone, that's a bummer. I've kicked my toe, Anyway, so I've lifted my foot up to have a closer look at my toe. And when you looked at my foot from the top, all you could see was the toenail blown off on the big toe, or half blown off, like lifted up. Not too bad. And then I've lifted my foot over more, to have a look, and my third toe was split all the way down, and it just peeled back like a banana all the way down to the end of my foot. So the whole toe was just like sliced. And I was only like a year 8 or something like that. So I just freaked the hell out, panicked, got up, started to run home. And I ran 20 meters, I'd say, and then went, oh no, I could lose, like the bottom of my toe could fall off and I could lose it. So I stopped in my tracks and just sat down. And by this stage, Anthony's mum, who couldn't speak English, she's run out, and she'd been cooking in the kitchen or something. She's run out and gone, and run up to me. And she had a tea towel, amazingly. And she wrapped the tea towel around my foot. And then anyway, they picked me up and carried me home. And they carried me to the front door, banged on the front door. Dad opened the front door. He just happened to be home, which is amazing, because he's always working. And he's taken one look at me. He obviously would have heard the explosion, because it was only just up the road. He's taken one look at me, and them two holding me up and just gone crack, clubbed me on the side of the head, said, "Get in the car, you idiot." So anyway, he's taken me to hospital. The whole way he's just lecturing me the whole way. I told you, you idiot. I told you. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, I wasn't even crying at that stage. When he smacked me in the side of the head, I realised how much of an idiot I was. So then I was a bit upset with myself. And anyway, he's taking me to hospital. They're looking at it. And they're like, oh, we don't know if you've shattered the bone. We take x-rays, all this sort of stuff. Cleaned it all out. It looked pretty weird. The thing that freaked me out the most about being in there wasn't my toe. It was on the wall in the examination room. They had photos and pictures of eyeballs and like how your eye works and all that sort of stuff. And they had a photo of a guy on the wall with his eye hanging out, with all the bits that connect your eye. It was hanging right out. Oh, man. And then I started tripping out thinking, imagine what it's like if you took your eye out and you could turn it back and look at yourself and all this sort of stuff. Which is, I suppose it was good one way. I was taking my mind off my foot. Anyway, after they went to x-rays, I went for the x-ray results. The nurse comes back in. And the old man's looking at my big toe. And he's going, because it was going a bit black underneath the toenail already. And he's going, I reckon he's got some compressed blood underneath there. I reckon you should relieve the pain. And so the nurse is going, oh, you reckon? And they asking me how sore it is. And I'm like, it's sore. But, I used to handle pain pretty good when I was young. Anyway, so they go, all right, we'll make sure. So they get a paper clip. They unfold the paper clip. And they stick it over a Bunsen burner thing. Get it red hot. And then burn it through your nail. Now, what I found out after was, if there is pressure from blood building up under the nail, when it gets through the nail and gets to the skin part, the blood comes out. Now, because I had no pressure, there was no blood coming out. So they kept burning. And then I was like, ah! Anyway, then she went, oh, no, there's no blood coming out. It's all right. So I'm like, yeah, beauty. Thanks for that. No painkillers, nothing. Anyway, I got the x-ray results back. I've got second and third degree burns on my foot. So I only had thongs on when I did this. Or did I? I don't even think I had anything on. I think I had bare feet. Anyway, then they've come back with the x-rays and said, I can't believe how lucky you are. It's shaved right along the bone. It hasn't hit the bone, affected the bone at all. Now, they stitched my toe back together, which was fine. Anyway, then they're going, yeah, well, you're going to have to put this cream on and you can't put a shoe on. You got to, look after the burns and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, yeah, all right. So this is what it was like back in the day, just for you young fellas to understand what people were like back then. Now, to teach me a lesson, I was not allowed to take one day off school. I had to limp around school with a sock on my foot. And I don't know if you remember what high school halls are like. Lining up to class, walking down the corridors, everyone's bumping. Do you know how many times people were standing on my foot? Do you know how painful it was to walk on that foot? Where I was not allowed to miss one day of school. That's the sort of old man I had. It taught me a lesson though. I never play with bombs again, and I don't recommend anyone do it either. But anyway, that took I can't remember. The actual toe itself healed up pretty fast. The burns took longer than the cut to heal, the toe to heal. I had no feeling in that toe it's still like you could hit it with a needle now, and I can feel it, but it's not painful, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So I lost some nerves in that toe. It looks a bit weird. And the burns on my foot, they all healed up good. Took, I don't know, 6 weeks, I think, before I had to stop dressing it and stuff. It was pretty nasty, and it's stunk rank. Anyway, and then everyone at school was trying to get me to make bombs for them and sell them to them. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. Well, they're like, just tell me how to do it. So anyway, I said, well, do you want to end up like me? But yeah, that's what you like when you're a kid. So basically, that was the end of the fun days of Cracker Night for me. And not long after that, the Australian government canned the whole lot, because you're not allowed to have any fun in Australia. I mean, that was my fault. Same with the story about riding my bike and getting hit by the car and fracturing my skull. Even to this day, I still don't. If I'm going to ride a push bike on the road, I ain't going to wear no stupid helmet. It's just not going to happen. But if I want to ride out there on the road and fall off my bike and hit my head on the sidewalk, is that not my responsibility? How is it anyone else's opinion and that I wear a helmet or not? What, are they going to make me wear wrist guards next so I don't break my arm? I mean, where does it stop? Anyway, that's just my opinion. Yeah, I'll see if I can get my toe up to the camera for you and prove that what I'm saying is not made up stories. This toe here, I don't know if you can make that out. Should still be able to see a scar running right down the long length that way. Not a good look. Sorry people, I don't clean my feet much and I walk out in the backyard grounding, so anyway, I'm sorry for the podcast listeners who actually can't see that and all the grunting and groaning that went along with it. I've torn my groin muscle. I'm in a bit of pain at the moment, but that's life. Again, doing stupid stuff. I haven't learned anything, even with my grey hair. Anyway, that's a rundown on Bonfire Night, Cracker Night in Australia in the 80s. One hell of a lot of fun. We used to have throwdowns and throw them at each other, which was good. You throw it, it would hit the ground and go. That's why they call it throwdowns. It's supposed to throw it at the ground. and it would a little explosion would go bang. So we throw them at each other. They were fun. Everything was fun. I loved it. To me, it was the best time of the year. As a kid, it was just heaven on earth, watching things explode and blow up and all the colours. Hope you can still hear that because I left the mic off. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope I've got a better story for you next time, a bit more entertaining. I'm trying to get used to this sort of stuff. I don't like being on camera. As I said, I'm hoping this podcast is really hoping just to keep the old Australia alive a bit, so the younger generation knows what it was like to grow up without a telephone, the things we used to do for entertainment. Yeah, life was pretty good without a telephone. The internet, staring at it all day long. Your brain worked all the time. I wasn't into reading books or anything. Some people were. I got into that later in life. But we were always building stuff, making stuff. Building carbies, tree houses, anything. Push bikes. Making surfboards, like that one in the back there. My brother used to make surfboards for a living. For years, I was a panel beater, so for years I was like, I wonder if I can make a surfboard. Then one day I found that blank in the chuck out. Someone had thrown an old blank out. So I thought, I'm going to give it a go. And I have to tell you, it came out pretty good. I'm impressed. Goes good too. Anyway, that's old Waxhead for the day. You guys have a cracker. Thanks for listening.